go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our final installment of the roundups that we have been doing for the Release the Yeast tournament, which is obviously our TTS AOS3 tournament that we've been having a great time with, and it's basically run its course. It is nearly over. We've got a couple of games left, but we're here to talk about tournament as a whole, a couple of the games that we happened in round six, and gets a winner's interview from the one and only Philip Kartaev, who was able to take out the tournament. Joining me as always is Stuart. How are you, Stuart?
Hello, I'm good. Very good.
And we also have the champion Philip with us. How are you, Philip?
Fine, thanks. Hello. Hello.
Hello. Um, so Philip, thank you very much for coming on to talk to everyone about your time at the tournament and your list. We've got your list up on screen. One of the first things that we wanted to talk to you was about was what was your thought process going into the tournament and why did you pick the list that you picked?
I wanted to test something new, some new gaming experience because usually I play other armies, and now I wanted to to test out this new stuff and get some interesting competitive games. Yeah, and I was lucky to get both, thanks to each opponents. Yeah, every game I played was damn interesting.
Good. So how does your list work for those that may be looking at this and not being able to make sense of it? What have you got on the list and how does it work?
Oh yeah, okay. So it's a list about control, right? We have here Belacor with his Dark Master ability, so you can switch off one enemy unit once per game. Yeah, also you have Kairos, who can change um, one dice, for example, for enemy, and yeah, some um, to destroy some crucial charge or spell or something, 6 damage attack or something like this. So it's the second element of control, and also Karis' spell, which creates spawn, is also very good control tool, especially against shooting armies, because you can tag something tasty like 30 sentinels or something like this. And the third important element is Demon Prince of Khorne. This unit has common ability with to halve enemies' charge rolls and run rolls. So it's very difficult to charge this army. So uh, that's why yeah, if you play this allegiance, you usually want to have this demon prince. So these three heroes, they create great control, and so also uh, maybe unusual for a Legion of the First Prince elements is the Blue Scribes. The Blue Scribes provide consistency for casting because they have their spell for rerolls, casting rolls, and also they have the ability to cast on 2+. So when you have not too many spells in this list, but you definitely need consistency with casting. So Blue Scribes you can cast even against Deckless, for example. Uh, so here's, yeah, for heroes, also obviously you have 10, 10, and 10 pings uh, to score objectives and to protect this castle of heroes. Pings are great before FAQ and after FAQ. Yeah, and there are some endless spells. Life Swarm to heal heroes first of all, and Umbral Spell Portal for Kairos and for his spell, uh, and Burning Head for little bit so to add something to damage, because yeah, there is there's quite low damage in this list. So you have control elements, but you have quite low damage. And the last, I think, very important list for pre-FAQ pings, the Triumph. I have 35 points, so I have Triumph in each of my games at this tournament. And before FAQ for pings, it was very important because sometimes you definitely need this battle shock immunity for them, and you can use Triumph, and in this case they can hold the line even if you have no heroes here. So here's my list.
I didn't actually notice that the big Triumph bid that you've got in there, 1935. It's not quite good enough personally for me with my 1915 points Triumph bid, but yeah, no, I do get that. Stuart, did you have any questions for Philip about his list or anything like that?
Yeah, so at the end of Age of Sigmar 2, I would say there wasn't many control lists in the game. What are the sort of changes do you think that have caused these sorts of lists to enter the metagame? Because there are lists other than this one that have sort of these control elements.
Oh, yeah, thanks. It's a very interesting question. I think it may be one of the good answers to meta, because now we have a lot of big gods or semi-gods, right? Like Marathi or Archaon or even Gotrek, and so these big heroes that we discussed here, that they are very, very good. So a lot of armies use such heroes, and sometimes you can't kill them, right? It's very difficult to kill Archaon, especially pre-FAQ Archaon. So that's why maybe you don't want to kill them, but just control them. Yeah, for example, this list plays quite good against Archaon because of Be'lakor, right? So that's why I think this list is just one of possible answers to modern meta.
Well, you certainly proved that it had all of the answers to a lot of different things, because you obviously played all 6 rounds and you won all 6 of your games during the tournament, Philip. So do you want to just tell us quickly a very, very, very brief summary of your tournament and what you learned from all the games that you played?
Oh, yeah, it would be difficult to but I will try. Yeah. Okay, so first of all, I think I should split all games to 2 types of games. So some armies for closed combat or some shooting armies, right? This list played against 3 closed combat armies. So it was Big Wag with Mokrasha and Kragnos, and it was 2 great Morph tribes list. And one of these games I was subbed by my good friend Kirill, from my teammate from Russia, because I wasn't able to play. And big thanks to Kirill and big thanks to community to make this possible. Yeah, we discussed with him this game, and he followed my recommendations, but of course it's also his victory. I think it was so these 3 games it were games for especially good matchups for this army, because it designed to stop such closed combat armies. So it was difficult to charge my stuff because of Demon Prince, because of Be'lakor. So that's why I was able to get some points on objectives, especially first part of the game when all my pings were fine. And then to get some agendas. I think the important thing about this list is good with agendas, because you can get additional points for monsters in your for monsters and for battle tactics with monsters, and at the same time it's quite difficult to kill your monsters to get some additional points for killing monsters, because of this 5 upward save and because of all these defensive tags. So that's why all these games was quite close games, but some 1-2 points for battle tactics, additional points for battle tactics, and yeah, sometimes it was enough to get the victory. And then I also had 3 games against shooting armies, and I think yeah, very different shooting armies, but yeah, also great games, but a little bit more difficult for this list. I think the most difficult game for me it was game against Tyvek Gain at his Seraphons, because yeah, of course Tyvek is a great player, and also it's a great list, especially against mine stuff. And I think yeah, we played Vice, so some quite conservative mission. And again, I think the crucial story was about one very important battle tactic, because Tavi wanted to kill my general, and because of this 3 up and 2 up save for my general, and also 5 upward save, so my general was tanky enough. But after all Tavi's shooting, he stayed with 1 wound left, and then I failed my last save roll, but Kairos was able to change the dice, and that's why my Demon Prince stayed with 1 wound left, and it was crucial 3 points for this game.
I remember that happening, and that was basically the swing that won you the game in the end, wasn't it? Because it was so close.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it won me the game and the title. But yeah, it was very close game. And also 2 interesting games with also with yeah, all my games were very interesting. Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, with Flying Foxes of Olivier, and with old good Iron Drakes, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, also quite scary stuff. Yeah. But again, if you have one big Death Star like Iron Drakes will with all this stuff, it's difficult to use it against such army. And yeah, it was helpful. Yeah, and
Cool.
I was able to get it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, nice. I know, Stuart, you were actually one of Philip's opponents. Did you want to ask Philip about anything that happened in any of his games or anything like that? Anything that you saw Philip do that you want to question him over?
I want to talk about the Fox matchup in specific, if that's all right, because I think that's one that we're probably going to see a lot, because both those armies are kind of top tier control lists, and they're both also very low drop. The Fox list is usually 1 drop, and this one's 2 drop, but I mean some variations it can be 2 drop. But how do you think this list goes against the Fox list? Obviously in this tournament you played on power and numbers, which I mean I think we can say is probably advantageous to your list with the 3 units of pinks. But how do you think you go on other battle plans versus the Foxes?
Yeah. First of all, I agree it was good battle plan for me, and maybe was a crucial thing to win this game. Because Helan is very interesting faction. I have experience with playing with Lumineth, and I think Helan has a quite nice trick to avoid my control tech. Because, for example, if you place, for example, spawn near enemies 30 sentinels, then they can fight with this spawn, and then they can use their heal on command ability to move at the end of the combat phase. So they can avoid this guy and to shoot next turn any target. So and also, yeah, it's also very difficult to hide heroes because foxes can easily kill, for example, blue scribes. And also, I think it's very good against my list that in his army, Olivier has some different threats. Yeah, not one Death Star, but 3 different foxes, 30 sentinels, and so it's even if you use Be'lakor against sentinels, elves still have a lot of tools to fight with you. But yeah, that's why I think it's very interesting matchup, and it's Helan's very strong army, and I would be happy to play against this matchup.
Nice. Okay, Philip. We did have one more question for you, and that was: do you have any tips for anyone who wants to get, from a competitive tournament winning perspective? You've obviously won plenty of events in the past, and you've managed to take this event. What advice would you give to someone for winning AOS 3 tournaments?
I think 2 ideas. First, if we talk about list building, then you need to ask yourself all the time how your army can cope with the main threats of modern meta, right?
What would you say they are at the moment in your eyes?
Teklis, Archon, Marathi, Gotrek, and Sons of Behemoth, I think.
Oh, nice.
They're really big threats. In all
Yes,
sense.
that's all of the big god models basically, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what your list is centered around to deal with.
Yeah, definitely. And the second thing, I think, if you want to test a new army in action, then just come to this channel and practice. There is a great community here that will help you to improve your playing skills. So here's my advices.
Oh, that's very nice of you. Thank you, Philip. Stuart, we won't keep Philip for too much longer. We appreciate Philip coming on. Did you have any final questions for Philip about him winning the event?
Yeah, I guess bouncing off your question, Luke, like, so you mentioned kind of going into the Discord servers and practicing. One thing with that is like, I think there's a lot of temptation to kind of play one list a couple of times and then move on to another list. How long do you give yourself to practice with one list before you kind of move on to another one?
Yeah, I think I have different experience with such with different lists. For example, with this list, I think I have maybe 2 weeks of practice, but definitely with some of my previous lists, I love to have more practice. For example, maybe months or 2 months.
Would you say this is in comparison to, like, I know you've played like Lumineth in the past. Like, would you say this is kind of less complicated army to play than Lumineth, or yeah, what do you think about that?
Oh yeah, I think that the Lumineth army is one of the most complicated army if you want to play at high level, right? Because I think, yeah, they're definitely very strong, and then they have all these good tools to get 5-0 or 6-0, but they are quite fragile, right? And you and so it's very sometimes it's very difficult to play using this army. So I think if you want to play Lumineth, you need a lot of practice. And yeah, I think it's one of the most difficult armies now in the game.
In comparison to that, would you say the Legion, the first Prince list that you ran, is slightly easier to play, a bit more straightforward in its game plan?
I I think for me it may be easier because this army is more resilient. But yeah, there are some difficulties, and if you wanted to test something like this, you definitely need some practice game before the event, because it's very unusual style of play. So, for example, you usually you don't kill a lot of stuff here, and it may be it may be quite uh, interesting new experience, but it may be difficult if you start with this army.
Okay, Philip. Thank you so much for speaking to us, and I want to give you a huge congratulations for winning the event with 6-0. You're the only player to go 6-0 in the tournament, and we hope to see you at any of the future events. I know that we'll be seeing you around, and I also want to give you a good luck to any real life events that you've got going on. So please tell everyone how you do, and good luck for the future. Thanks very much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Also, that was Philip, who kindly give us a little winners interview, and we will carry on with the show. We're not going to do our normal run through every single match, unfortunately, because we had Philip on, and um, we've had hundreds of matches across the tournament. Um, but what we did want to go through, Stuart, was this spreadsheet that we can see in front of us now is the final standings done properly, where we've added a little score so we can rank it from wins and losses rather than victory points, which is how we had it incorrectly set up on TTO. So we've got this spreadsheet, and we just want to have a look at basically the final table and pick out a few people that surprised us and look at maybe like the top 10 and saw what going on in the tournament. So, Stuart, looking at this table, what have we got going on? What's the summary of the event?
So I think just before we have a look at the spreadsheet, I would like to look at the faction breakdown, just to give us a perspective of kind of where we were coming in terms of the faction distribution. Because obviously, if you've got like 3 Seraphon in the top 10 and there were 25 Seraphon players, it's it can be a bit misleading. So I mean, it is a broad distribution of factions, but definitely ogres, Seraphon, and Soulblight are kind of big armies here. So each of them has like 6 or 7, and then also I would say Idneth Deepkin at 5 was quite heavily represented in the tournament. Yeah, I don't think I've seen another tournament that's had so many IDK players. I played 2 of them, and yeah, and also yeah. So with that in mind, like we've actually got quite a good split between the alliances, right? Because it used to be we'd have like mostly order and chaos. But now a lot of people are playing ogres, and the Soulblight has really increased the death factions army. Because I mean, last edition, a lot of TTS tournaments would have 1 or 2 death armies out of like 80 players. It was always something like that. So it's great to see death getting some more representation here. So yes. Now in the top bracket, we just got Phillip on his own in the 6-0. But the next bracket down, we've got 5-5-0s. Three of them are tied at 84 points, and there's an 89 and a 95 point here. We haven't got the factions on here, but Antu was playing Daughters of Cain with his Marathi, Gotrek, and Bowsnake sort of archetype. And he was able to get second place here. Luke, do you think that's more or less what we expected?
I think during our very first show where we did the list rundown, I think I tipped Philip to win the event, and I said he would have to, Antu would be probably nipping at his heels, being running probably the scariest sounding list at the tournament going in was probably the Marathi Gotrek list. That was probably the big boogeyman. And we just thought that knowing Philip as a player that he might be able to edge it. So in the top two, that's basically confirmed that, where Philip with his anti-meta list was able to get the 6 wins, and then Antu with his meta list proved that it's meta for a reason, with a 5-1 win with a Gotrek and Marathi, just 2 unkillable centerpieces with all the damage in the world coming from those double shooting bow snakes. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's worth noting that 1, 2, and 3 didn't play each other, which I guess
true.
often happens in an event of this size. But yeah, I mean, looking at it on paper, it actually would be quite interesting to see how this list go together. So we've got Philip with the Legion of the First Prince, and then Antu with the Daughters of Cain, and then Nikita in third place, which is a great result. Is he was playing Soul Blight with I might just get his list up because it's interesting to look at. I think
so
this one, yeah. So he's
167. He's called it.
Yeah, so he's playing Legion of Night, and we've seen a lot of different approaches to Soul Blight Gravelords. There's a lot going on in that book, and I think, particularly in the UK, we're seeing a lot of Nagash around. But here Nikita's, instead of going for like the Hero Hammer style of Soul Blight Gravelords, he's gone for like just mega wounds and durability, just like the stuff. So he's got Manfred, 2 Necros, and then 3 units of 5 Blood Knights, 3 up save, mega durable. In Hunters of the Heartland, so against a monster, they can be reliably a 2 up save. And then 2 units of 30 Skeletons, mega annoying, and especially with the double pile in, how they can bring back, basically double stack that 4 up, bring back a slain model in the combat phase. And then 2 units of 10 Wolves as the chaff. Yeah, so this is just a very durable list. Yeah. And I know, Luke, you played against this list. Do you have any thoughts on it? I mean, obviously Gargants is a kind of similar sort of army. I mean, not your build so much, but Gargants is kind of a similar durable DPS check army. How did the matchup go, and what do you think about this army in general?
It is and it isn't. I think this army is incredible and is actually incredibly strong, and Nikita played it perfectly in a lot of the games that I saw him play. So I do really want to congratulate Nikita. But those skeletons are probably the main focus of the list, and the only thing I can compare them to is actually Pink Horrors. They just don't die. If you charge into a unit of skeletons with Dance Macabre on them and you don't kill every single one, that unit is back to 30 when they fight twice afterwards. But like, statistically, they are back to health because they get to fight twice on a 4-up coming back. So every slay model that you just did then comes back. So the way to deal with them is to put something into them that you'd like to think would kill them in one go. But that's easier said than done in Nikita's list, where he's got some fantastic debuffs coming out from the Necromancers, and they played a big part in my game, where they were able to consistently get their locus of Sheesh off by natural rolling 9s to cast and getting a double debuff on the Fading Vigor and Overwhelming Drag. So that's -1 attack and -1 to hit, and he can stack those if he gets the natural 9+ to cast, which he did against me a few times. So you're not going to be one-hitting those skeletons, and then they're just really, really hard to deal with. And aside from that, he's got all this speed and ambushing with the Blood Knights and the Direwolves. So for me, when I only had 4 models in my army, he was able to basically completely surround me and make it so if I left any objective, he was just going to have a unit of dire wolves or blood knights sat doing nothing. So I either have to move out the way off the objective to deal with them, or if I move off the objective to push up the board, then he's just going to take the home objective off me, which is obviously very important in Savage Games, which is what we played in round 6. I just think this list has a lot of flexibility, huge amounts of survivability, and lots of little tricks. And one of the tricks I do just want to highlight is that Manfred, Nikita played Manfred so well, and Manfred was actually what allowed his Blood Knights of all things to take down my Kragnos, because he would cycle in, charge Manfred, roar him, and then fuck off, teleport out. So within 12 of his bubble to give +1 to hit and wound. So I just couldn't deal with Manfred, and he basically had a free roar per turn without me being able to do anything about it. And he made every single one of them, and that stopped me getting all out attack to get through the skeletons, or stopped me getting all out defense, which is why Kragnos was on a 3-up save, not a 2-up save against the Blood Knights, and I rolled some bad saves, and Kragnos went down early. So this list is just really hard to get through. It's a DPS checklist with tech and mobility as well. And I think, based on what we're seeing on the meta, that's a good thing. That's a really good thing, and I think it's going to do well. And I think Nikita has found an interesting, unique way to play Soulblight, and I think it's one of the strongest I've seen.
It's just a shame you can't get Curse in here, huh? But that shit is so good. Anyway, yeah, I think it's a very interesting list. I mean, just some other things here. Like, I mean, I hadn't thought about the free roar before. That's actually insane. I haven't thought about that before. That's mega annoying to play against. But also this command trait here, like the Unbending Will, is an immune to Battle Shock aura. So I mean, like, one way to play against this would be to bring Horrorghast, which I think we're going to be seeing a lot more, to be honest, if people are going to bring like all these DPS checklists. But that's a way around that. And also Morbeg's Claw is not as broken as it used to be, where you could still run after doing it. But I'm glad they fixed that now. So you can't move after you use it, but it gives you +2 to cast. So obviously that's mega. I've seen other builds that have gotten rid of the Unbending Will for Master of Magic for the reroll cast, but yeah, that's kind of to taste. Okay, so yep.
That list did get third. We do want to mention that list did get third, so that is a podium list from Nikita there.
So we got a clean 1, 2, 3, which is good, because I was a little bit worried about, because we got a 3-way tie for 4th, and we don't have like another count back. So I mean, I think on strength of schedule, I don't know how it would shake out. I think I'm actually in 4th on strength of schedule, but anyway, in 4th place, I came 4th. Yeah.
Well done, Stuart. Well done. That's a really good result, mate. Really happy.
It's interesting. I've been playing around with a bunch of stuff recently, but yeah, I do think this is probably the best list I can come up with at the moment for ogres.
Yeah, you're one of the only people that really tries this Yetis. I think all the other lists that we saw that were ogres, there's quite a lot of them were all the more Beast Claw Raider, Yulbad archetypes. So briefly summarize why Yetis are better than Yulbad, if you may.
Well, I mean, obviously the list looks like it's focused on Yetis, but I mean, philosophically speaking, I just think that more than one Frosthold and Stonehorn, it's just too many cooks in the kitchen. It's just like, yeah, like I feel like Stonehorns actually anti-synergize with themselves, like, because if you charge 2 of them in, like, unless it's the same unit, you want to go with one of them first, and then the other one just gets battered. And you know, like, if he's taking a roar or something, he does actually just kind of die, and then, you know, you're struggling with a Stonehorn on like bottom bracket who doesn't have +1 to hit, and Stonehorns without buffs don't do anything. Like, it's just 4s and 3s on the horns, so you get like, you know, 2 of them through. So I've just found in general that you just want one, and then stuff that helps him get where he needs to be and dodge his biggest threats. So the Yetis are really just there so that he doesn't die too early, and that he gets to pick the matchups that he wants, and also doesn't ever have to take Unleash Hell. Like, I never have to deal with Unleash Hell in this list, because not only do I have all these Yetis, like, you know, that I can just charge in or pile in to stop an Unleash Hell, but like, it has to be said, Hrothgorn probably won me like 3 of my games. It's yeah, I think he's probably in every ogre list. I mean, just being able to send one Frost Saber in to stop an Unleash Hell and then score Savage Spearhead on the same turn is pretty ridiculous.
Yes.
Yeah, I I would say with the trap, like, don't actually put it somewhere good because you will probably step on it. Because yeah, it's one of those things. It's like it's the opposite of a win more thing. It's like when you start winning, you wish you didn't have it on the board. But when you're losing, it's kind of just irrelevant anyway. It's yeah, it's a difficult one to use. But yeah, I would say in all of my victories, the Frostlord and Stonehorn probably killed 1,700 points, something like that. You know, stuff like that. Like, I mean, obviously in the Nagash game I played, he didn't kill Nagash, but I mean, he pretty much killed everything else. And you know, I did play a mirror match against Beastclaw Raiders, and my Stonehorn killed 2 Frostlords and Stonehorn, a Stonehorn Beast Rider, and 4 Mournfang, right? So 2 of himself, and then another Stonehorn, and then 2 units of 2 Mournfang. And I don't think that was the fault of my opponent at all. I just think that, you know, having the chaff, like this much chaff, just lets you pick the matchups and the charges for the whole game. And when your opponent is playing with, you know, models that are relatively bad at taking charges and also need to pick their matchups, if you can pick the matchups, then you're kind of just on the home stretch. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not that your Frostlord has got better artifacts or command traits than the other Frostlords. It's simply the Yeti delivery system amplifies him considerably, right? And then that's basically I can see it now where your list is basically the Frostlord show, isn't it?
Yeah, and the Thunder Tusk is interesting. He never took more than 3 wounds the whole tournament, I think. uh yeah, people just don't want to deal with him, which I understand. But like the fact that you're guaranteed a general alive pretty much the whole game is actually huge. Like because
100%.
yeah, because with Ogre More Tribes, that's actually tends to be a bit of a weakness of the army, is that the generals you can pick from are often not good aside from this Thunder Tusk. Like having a Stonehorn as your general means that, you know, if you charge him in, you're kind of constantly risking just like losing command points for the rest of the game, and that's just something you really don't want. And you know, I happen to think that Iron Guts are actually probably still quite good, but the fact that you have to take a Gut Busters general to make them battle line, it's just awful, because you don't want to take a Tyrant because he sucks. But if you take a Butcher as a general, like you can't do that. Like you just can't. So yeah, it's tricky. But I think the Thunder
Well
Tusk
done,
is great.
Stuart. You've done really well at this tournament, and you got the best destruction. You know, well, we had a little competition between us, and well done, Stuart. We also had some other heroes in that same bracket issue. We had Little Tank and his Feck, which is amazing, and Detro and his Monster Mash Seraphon, which is snuck up on me. These 2 lists, actually. You know, I wouldn't have put these 2 to be where they are, not in a million years. Why do we think that Monster Mash Feck and Monster Mash Seraphon have done so well?
I still have no idea with the Flesh Eater Courts, because it seems to be happening in multiple places, like some sort of like, I don't know, like there's just hacks going off, and like little feck lists are just making their way into the system or something. I still don't really understand how they're doing so
I
well.
would unpick it. I would unpick it as like probably the biggest casino army in the game at the moment. Where I mean, we joked about Little Tank the whole time. You know, just roll 6s, and if you do, you win. And I think that's what Little Tank did here. To be perfectly honest with you, because he's gone for the 3 Terrorgeist and Gristlegore, which is obviously just ultra aggro. He sticks them up. He risks getting the long bomb charge. He risks getting his damage off by rolling 6s on the Maw. He's obviously got reroll hits on one of them. And there's nothing you can do if your opponent rolls those good dice
Yeah,
there.
I think that's the
You've just got to
thing,
let it
isn't
walk
it?
over you.
Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how many save stacks you have, or how durable your unit is, if he just rolls a bunch of 6s. Yeah. And that doesn't actually exist in many parts of the game. Like, I would say Curse and Hand of Dust are probably the other two things that just kind of break the save stack thing. Like, you can't just stick the big, I don't know, unit of Blood Knights or something in front of him, and just block him up. Because a lot of other monsters kind of get stuck on tanky units, right? Especially like tanky units in Hunter of the Heartlands, right? Like,
Exception I would have to that, and one of the units that I'd also peg into the same thing as Hand of Dust and Curse would be Kragnos and his casino roll when he charges a monster. Stuff
I
that just
mean,
completely bypasses the bypasses the safe stack meta. And Terrorgeist are one of them, aren't they?
yes. I mean, let's put Kragnos aside for a second, but because he has some other issues, but
Nah.
like the fact that he can't deal with terrain. But yeah, the Terrorgeist, I mean, once you get the plus D3 attacks off, and you can pile in twice, that's going to be on average of like 10 attacks. With the rerolls to hit off, the more you probably get like 3 6s. I think that's the average. So still 18 mortal wounds even just at average. Now the big role in the games that I've watched Little Tank play as well is the roar. So if he goes into another monster and your opponent fails the roar, then he's probably just dead.
Yeah. Twice, yeah.
Yeah. But if you get the roar, then you're probably okay. But I've found that the Terrorgeists like don't die quite as quickly as you would expect them to. Obviously they've got access to their own bonuses to save. Yeah. So, I mean, it used to be that if you went in and you whiffed, they would just automatically die to anything, but I don't think that's necessarily the case now, You can go in and whiff, and then on your opponent's turn, you can put Finest Hour on. Maybe you've already got Mystic Shield on. Maybe you've already got the 5-up Shrug on, and, he might not die. And the Maw doesn't bracket at all, so, there's still always the risk of taking it again the next turn if you don't quite kill him, right?
And I think a lot of players were like, "Oh, how do I counterplay this list? Do I need to worry about it? It's gone 5-1." You can't do counterplay. It doesn't matter how well you play. You can't counterplay this if you're dead, and you are if you roll 6s. So that's basically my summary of this list. So well done to Little Tank. And the other one in the bracket was Detro and his Monster Mash. And this list snuck up on me even until round 6, Stuart. I didn't realize it was doing as well as it did.
So, I mean, you look at this list and it does slightly boggle the mind if you consider it in Age of Sigmar 2. Like, if you ran this at Age of Sigmar 2, you'd just be trolling. Like, this would just be terrible because it all count as 1. But now that they all count as 5, like there's a lot of stuff in here. I mean, right? There's there's 7 monsters in here. It's a lot of shit.
The only army I can think of that can field 7 good monsters.
Because they're so much cheaper than other monsters in the game. That's the thing, right? Like that Scar Veteran on Carnosaur, like, has got to be up there with one of the most criminally underpointed units in the game, right?
Yeah, and I've said it before and I'll say it again about the Battle Woodlouse. 235 points, and that thing can solo half an army. Oh, great units that he's got in here. But it's them working together in this list, isn't it? Do not let it fool you. This is a shooting list. This is a survivable, mobile shooting list, and that's quite unique, and it's worked really well for Detro here.
Yeah. I'm interested to know how he would go moving forward, because obviously we've seen the Engine of the Gods get access to Curse now. Which particularly with all this shooting, and Stegodons actually have quite a number of attacks compared to other monsters in the game, because it's all like your damage 2 pretty much. So like getting Curse off even in this army is actually huge. So I wonder if he would change that Skink Chief to an Engine of the Gods, and I think you can fit it in another one instead of the Carnosaur maybe, and just take 2 Engine of the Gods and run the same list basically. But yeah, definitely, this is an archetype that we're all going to have to look out for, because it's very tricky to play against.
This is a list. I think this is a list that's going to going to become more popular and it's going to stay around. I think you're going to see this in the top tens of a few tournaments actually, which is weird to say, but I think it's good.
Yeah, the Stegodons are a great like anti-monster thing because they get +1 save when they're in combat with 5 or less models. And
They're
in
in
Hunters of the
Heartland.
Heartlands, yeah, they can't get roared, so I mean you could be +2 save, reducing damage by 1. So
Yeah.
I mean they're only 12 wounds, which is maybe a bit lower than other monsters, but they're
14 in Thunder Lizard.
no,
Right.
they're 10 normally, so 12 and
10 and then 12.
yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah.
yeah. But you know, I mean for 265 points, they're great. The shooting is swingy, but it's I mean it's basically one ranged iron gut, but it's just think about just throwing big clubs at people. That's basically what they're doing. But yeah, I mean great list and great to see someone go 5-1 with the furthest you can go with Monster Mash and Seraphon. So good job.
Absolutely. Right, so that's all of the 5-1 brackets talked about. We won't go through every single bracket, but did you want to just maybe scroll down, Stuart, and pick out any lists, any players, any surprises, anything you want to shout out anywhere on this ranking board that we've got? Who's do you want to bring attention to in their tournament results?
Well, I would say this whole 4-2 bracket is kind of the Sharks, right? For the most part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like this, I
Yeah.
mean, it's it shows how strong we're going with the list because if you look at all these 4-2 players, I mean they're all great players and the lists are also just like really strong. So, but I would say that none of them are really control lists, right?
No. So you're talking about Miles's Gargants, Matthews all-out attacks, Soul Blight, Tavi's Bastillodon Salamander, Thunder Lizard list, Orkman's Corn Scarbrand Bonanza, my Kragnos Gatebreaker list, Alan's 4 Carnosaurs, Constantine's Stonehorns, AZ Stonehorns, Patari's IDK, Morsar, Olivier's Foxes, Codrin's Archeon, and Nick's Stormcast Annihilated list. So they're all get in your face combat type lists, with probably the exception of Tabby and Olivier there, aren't they?
Olivia's probably the only one that you maybe could call a control list. I guess it's a
Yep.
control list. But
Yeah,
other
like
than
I say,
that,
it
it's all damage, isn't it?
It is.
I think Olivia probably did get a bit unlucky with the matchups, not to go 5-1 or 6-0, but
Yeah.
like yeah. So I mean, maybe it might be maybe the scoring system we used, or which we have some stats on a bit later, but you see a lot of these players actually have points that are reaching up until over the 5-0 bracket, right? Like Miles has 89 points, which is equal with third place, but obviously he's got one less win. So I mean, there's been a lot of debate in the community, Luke, about kind of the 5 like how we should score tournaments, like whether we should have the 5-1 bracket be decided like be decidedly above the 4-2 bracket, or whether it should be just based on number of points. So do you have any thoughts on the scoring systems moving forward?
I think winning a game of Warhammer is difficult in a tournament like this, and should be rewarded if you do get the win. I think getting large numbers of victory points can be, I think to ultimately win a game, it's about matchup and skill and maybe a little bit of luck, but just getting mega points, like 20-0 type stuff, could all come down to the fact that you got a key double turn and just tabled someone. So personally, I think we should reward players for, like Phillip, that he didn't win his games by a lot of points, but he had to really think about in advance, prepare, do the matchups, work out the battle plans, and work out a way to win the game. Because if it's based purely on points, then you could just it's a bit more just let's throw down, roll some dice, and see what happens. Where I feel like ordering things in wins and losses gives it a bit more structure and control to the player skill and list building type stuff, I think. So personally, I'd probably stay at the win-loss system that we've gone here and have a 6-0 winner and a 5-1 bracket and a 4-2 bracket, etc. Do you feel the same way, or do you feel differently?
I do feel the same way, but perhaps the current 20-0 system we've got definitely has some flaws, I think. Like if we looked at the last game's results, I'll just go back to the
Stats,
rounds
Stuart.
here. I
Don't you
will
have
show
a
the stats,
stat
but
that links
just
into-
as a visual representation here. Like if you just scroll down the round 6 scores, like there is a lot of 20-0s in here, right? Compared to the previous
Yeah.
rounds. Like if you go to the Vice, I mean, I think there's 2, 3, right? And then there's a lot of like 11-9
Two of them were
scores
forfeits
here,
as
right?
well, actually.
Yeah.
So there's 2 real 20-0s in this round.
So
And
you're
then round
really
6.
seeing the big difference on the battle plan now. I don't know if I can get it on the screen without starting a new screen share, so I'll just read it out actually. So obviously we had 6 rounds this tournament, and we played kind of a number of different styles of battle plans. So there were lots of them. There were a couple with 3 in the middle, right? And then we played like the Vice, which kind of is a very low score mission, and then Savage Games at the end we had a very high score mission. Just with the stats on the mean difference, so like here for example, the difference between Phillip and Tobias in the last game was 5 points, right? And so Phillip got a 15-5. So if we took an average of that across all the players on each battle plan, so survival of the fittest, which is the first battle plan, which is it's 3 objectives in the middle, right, Luke? I'm not getting that wrong, am I? With the predators and prey. Yeah. With the predators and the prey one. Yep. So there's like there's quite a few of those 3 objectives on the diagonal missions, but this one has another point scoring opportunity with the predator killing another predator, right? Now in this one we had an average difference of 6.7. Now that I think is a little higher than it normally would be because it's round 1.
Yes.
Now obviously there's no like Swiss pairing in round 1, so people are just playing raw matchups, and so if there's a big difference between list strength or player skill, obviously it's not going to account for that, and so there's going to be potentially large differences in list strength and player skill, and that's why there's a lot of people who are going to get 20-0s regardless of the battle plan. So I don't think the fact that this is 6.7 necessarily means that the battle plan is super high scoring. It is higher than the other ones, but not by like an absolutely huge margin. And then in round 2, we had Power Struggle, which was an average of 5.48. Now, Power Struggle is basically the old focal points, but this is the one where you have to control an objective for 2 turns consecutively to score. Now this one is a little bit weird because you only score, it's still 1-2 more, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean there are 5 objectives, but it's still 1-2 or more, which is I feel like a little bit weird considering with Savage Games it still kind of has the old border war scoring. But yeah, in this one like the scoring is it's actually quite difficult to pull far ahead. And so I think that's why, even though it was still round 2, and so there's still going to be a lot of matchups that are not that close in terms of list strength and player skill, this one had 5.48, which is kind of the dead mean amongst the group. And then in round 3, we got into the Vice, Luke. Now, this one I think is the big outlier. So if you just go back to this round 3 stats here, so I mean, if you just do a casual scroll down, you can see how close everyone is, and that's really reflected in this average difference here, which is 3.45. So 3.2 distance from the first round, which is survival of the fittest. So what that means is that our point scoring system here is probably not discriminating between the matches properly, and so there's a lot of scores in here that are like 11-9 that should be higher. Because in this round, there was only like a 3 points difference. Because in this mission, it is so hard to pull far ahead. If you don't do it in like the first turn, it just ends up being such a low scoring game. And I know in my game, it was just like, well, it's going to be like 1 or 2 points. And I think most of the games were like that, right?
So just for people that maybe are just a little bit confused by Stuart's numbers that he's coming out with here, basically what we're trying to see is which battle plans that we played in this tournament produced the closest or the biggest blowouts. So the Vice had a mean of what, 3.2, did you say?
3.4, yeah.
3.4. And then the last round where we saw some crazy results, Savage Gains, what was the average score difference between results there?
7.78.
So are we saying that Savage Gains is 2 times more likely to be like a big scoring difference as opposed to something like the Vice? And how do you balance that when you're doing a tournament score? How do you take that into account, basically? So if you were to go with victory points as opposed to wins, you'd really have to take stats like this into account, basically, wouldn't you?
But I mean, even on the count back, I mean, it's going to affect the results. Like if you get a good matchup on the Vice, like I'm better than this guy, or my list should beat his list. Like you're only going to get like 1 or 2 extra points out of it because of the battle plan. But then on Savage Gains, if you're in a good matchup for whatever reason, you should just get the 20-0 like every time. I know Luke and I were talking about it, but it was like I think both of our games were pretty close, and then just like in the last 1 or 2 turns, the score just completely blew out in a way that it didn't in other missions.
Yeah.
Like I ended up with a 19-1, but that does not reflect at all how close that game actually was. And I think it really should, right? Like if we're gonna have all these like 11-9s in earlier rounds and stuff, then I guess the scoring system should adapt to
With the
Savage
battle plan?
Gains. Yeah, or you either comp the scoring system or you comp the actual battle plan. I know people won't be necessarily a fan of that though, but yeah, I mean, I feel like Savage Games particularly is a bit of an outlier amongst the battle plans because it kind of abandons the 1-2 more scoring, and instead you can score, 7 points on objectives on 1 turn, which you can't do on any other mission really. So it is a little bit weird. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that little statistical tangent, Stuart. And it's probably a bit more wide meta thinking about battle plans and tournament scorings. Would you mind very quickly just going back to your overall rankings spreadsheet? And I just want to maybe go through some of the lower tables, the middle to lower tables, and pick out a few heroes that we've got down here that obviously not doing as well as someone like Phillip, but as doing well for themselves, considering what lists that they've bought, or maybe they're a new player. Is there anyone further down that you want to give a shout out to, Stuart, and
Oh
bring
yeah, yeah.
attention to their
You
result?
know who I'm gonna shout out? I gotta shout out my boy Raymond Lane, who got 83 points. It's just mind blowing. And some of those games as well. It wasn't a 20-0. It was like a 40-0. It was like the points were just completely unbelievable, and I've never seen anything like it before. So I mean, 83 points, puts him in terms of points like, between 10th and
Fifth
11th
place.
place. Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
But also above 1 point below me in 5-1, right? So despite having 2 less wins than me, he could still get the points in the games. Like I know a lot of his losses were close, and the games that he did win, I think he just 20-0'd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is obviously Ray's Nurgle list with all the Pascal Blight Lord stacking attacks and getting Blades of Putrefaction off and stuff like that.
Now, if
So
I was gonna be cynical, Luke, are the 20-0s the game that he gets blades off? Possibly. But yeah,
essentially, yeah.
magnificent job. And yeah, love to see Nurgle doing stuff. Very good.
Yeah, cool. I would like to shout out everyone's favorite Dino Slayer, Will Potter and his Bone Splitters. He got 3-3 results, but three of those wins were against Seraphon? Is that right? Or two of those wins were against Seraphon, and then he got a win somewhere else. But I think his first three games were all against Seraphon, running his Bone Splitters. But he surprised everyone, and round two was against Alan. I know that. So it was Wilhelm, he got a win against, playing Seraphon. Alan, which he unfortunately lost against, and then Hayden Seraphon, he got a win against. Um, You're telling me that you don't think Bone Splitters are in as bad as a spot as people think, and there's a bit of an Arrow Boys and Curse combo that you think is quite hard to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Orkman wrecked me last night with it, so I do feel a bit a bit sore about it. But um, yeah, it's interesting whether the book's gonna stay like that. But yeah, at the moment, Savage Orcs are just very cheap for how many wounds they are, and also the Arrow Boys are probably the highest number of attacks at range per point out of anything in the game. So they get 90 attacks at range. So if you get Curse off, they're going to do 15 mortal wounds in addition to whatever normal damage that they do. So yeah, they're very strong if you get Curse off. And Bone Splitters at the moment have access to probably one of the cheapest and efficient ways to put Curse in your list, which is the Wardock, who's 85 points, who is a wizard, a dancer, and a priest. And so he gets to, give a unit either, he can heal a unit, a Bone Splitters unit, which is, I mean, probably not useful without a Rogue Idol, but he can give him +1 save, or he can give himself +1 to cast. And yeah, he can do a spell. So Bone Splitter spells, obviously amazing ones that are available. Probably one of, if not the best spell lore in the game, I think we can say. Like double move, yeah, stuff like that. Like, yeah, there's some crazy spells in there. And then obviously, yeah, you just kind of get a free prayer. So all of your little 85-point Wardocks can take Curse, and it's just something your opponent has to play around, because if you walk into range of the Wardock and you measure something wrong and they roll the 4 up, you're gonna be taking some damage. Yep.
Yeah, so well done to Will there, the Dino Slayer, taking out his 3-3, which I think that's really good for him. I also want to shout out in the 3-3 bracket Michael, who's Inquisitors, and he's bringing Sylvaneth. And if you look at some of the other 3-3s, you've got two Gotrek Marathi list, you've got a Seraphon list, you've got Nagash, you've got IDK, and then Sylvaneth right in the middle of the pack with a 3-3. So I think that's a really good result, don't you think?
Yeah, I know he's I know he's thinking about ditching the Sylvaneth after this event, but you know, yeah, I always admire Sylvaneth players. They have a faith in something that I don't. So keep going on, Luke and Michael. We'll get there one day. Okay.
No, MJ Pegasus also with a 2, 1, and 3 on Sylvaneth. So well done to both of those Sylvaneth players. Anyone else you wanna
Yeah, I
point
would
people's
like to
attention towards?
shout out CJ for bringing the Trogs. Now, she hasn't played it last game, but she did go 1-4. But a lot of those games were very close. And I was talking to my friend Arthur about it the other day. Like, the Trogs are quite interesting. Like, they're not a good army, but they do like hang with the top armies for like 4 turns of the game, and then the 5th turn they just collapse. Like that's what I've seen. Like, if your opponent just comes in and blows up the Loon Shrine, it's just kind of like, oh, I don't have allegiance abilities anymore. Um, that yeah,
Oh,
they're interesting. They're like yeah, they don't win games, but they often almost get there against matchups that, like, you think that they would just get wrecked. So I think they're quite an interesting army.
yeah. So I remember seeing Warhammer Rob and Nagash going in, being like, "Ah, they're not fucking dying! Oh my god, there's Trogs everywhere!" And I think that's kind of like the effect that they have on people, where it's a bit like probably an army that gets underestimated a little bit, aren't they?
I think everyone panics against Trogs on about turn 3, and they're like, "Oh shit, I might actually lose this game," and then they don't because it's Trogs. But like, they're they're almost there. They're like almost there to being like a really solid army. So
Yeah.
props to bring it, and yeah, definitely would love to see some more Trog players at future tournaments because obviously amazing models, amazing background, and they're trolls. What more do you need?
Excellent. Okay. Aside from results, Stuart, we've also had some just amazing people for this event, and pretty much everyone has made this event fantastic. It's been one of my favorite events that I've played in, and it's been really, really nice to um, be a part of it on from an organizer point of perspective and doing these shows. Um, I just want to just send some love to everyone, basically. Shout out all of my friends that are playing in this. So Tarry and Tubbs and Hippie Chef and yourself doing really well. And there's some new names that I'm going to be looking out for that I want to play. So it's been really good to me seeing this tournament develop and go along and produce some excellent stories. Um, any non-gamey type stuff you want to talk about this tournament? Any just shout outs you want to give?
Um, I would like to say, what do I want to say? I would say that it was great to see, well, because often like with these TTS long form things, it is a little bit anticlimactic, and also like you don't necessarily get the community vibe from it. But I think this is the maybe one of the first ones, aside from like when TGS first launched it definitely was like everyone was at home locked in, so we were all like, just constantly on Discord, just yelling at each other. But now I mean, people got more or less normal lives in a lot of places in the world, so but it was great to see everyone coming on the Discord, watching each other's games, and although the tournaments ended, I would encourage you to do that in the other tournaments you're playing in, and also whenever there's a looking for game thing and you're seeing two big players going at it, get a paintbrush out and flip them on, and yeah, just enjoy yourself, because I mean, we never used to be able to get to watch just really good players practicing against each other, from around the world. And I mean, Warhammer has a tremendously high barrier of entry, so I mean, we've been able to do a lot of things that we maybe couldn't in in the world previous, and especially the world now. So stay on TTSing. It's amazing.
Yeah, TTS is not dead. Last huge shout out to Trogdor, who's the ultimate big boss uh, of our Trog herd, and he's the one that came up with this idea. So make sure that if you've enjoyed this tournament, you send Trog a message thanking him for all his hard work. Oh my goodness, he's just turned up in the chat. That's weird. Uh, just wanted to say, Trogdor, huge thank you for putting on this tournament, and I'm sure everyone in the chat would like to say thank you to you too. So big hats off to Trogdor. I'm gonna clap for Trogdor. Well done, Trog. Really enjoyed the event, mate.
This might be one of those things, Luke, where it's just like, oh, Trog, do you want to make a speech? And then he's just like, he's on the he's in the call while he's in the bath or something.
Yeah, he's just having a on the toilet, I think. Just switched it on. Yeah, never mind.
Wait, so are you talking to me?
No, he's there. He's there. It's good.
Yeah, no, you literally just joined us at the bit where we were rounding up and thanking you for putting on the tournament. So,
Oh,
thank you for putting on the tournament, and I'm sure everyone in the chat has the same level of appreciation for all the work that you've put into this event. We've really enjoyed it. So, that's a goodbye from me, everyone. Thanks for playing in, and we do keep your eyes open. We might have some more events coming up. Thanks for playing. Is that an end to the show?
yeah, can I just say, yeah, thank